So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. This is a really special webinar put on by EFMA. It's on a topic that's absolutely critical to any financial service organization in their digital transformation strategy and maintaining their competitive edge, and also maintaining their cost effectiveness and making sure that they are ahead of the game. So today's webinar is all about how to improve customer loyalty in sales. And in this webinar, we'll be introducing the new EFMA Customer-centricity Benchmark, which is in partnership with Smarter Way Mentors. So today I have the absolute pleasure of hosting this webinar with Carlos and Vivian, and they will be sharing their insights and experiences about really putting customer centricity at the forefront and how this led to a successful digital transformation strategy. So we'll start off with a quick round of introductions, and then we'll jump straight into the case study. So we'll look at a few of the problems facing the bank, the transformation, and we'll wrap up with a little bit of information around the new EFMA Customer Centricity Benchmark. And of course, we'll leave some time for the participants to ask some questions to both Carlos and Vivian. Okay. Great. So my name is Megan Johnson. I'm one of the senior advisors at EFMA. And over the past 10 years, I've been looking at customer centricity, customer experiences, and really helping banks and fintechs and companies create fantastic customer experiences within their digital propositions. I'm an independent consultant at Digital Mags, and previously I was an associate director at Informa and co-founder of 11FS. And at the moment, I'm working with traditional banks, fintechs, tech companies, retailers, and organizations looking to enter the embedded finance, embedded banking space, and helping really develop customer-centric propositions. And my two panelists today are Carlos Wanderley. He was formerly the head of retail banking at Union Bank of Nigeria. So Union Bank of Nigeria is going to be at the forefront of today's case study in this webinar. Carlos successfully led the transformation to an award-winning, fully digital customer-centric bank. And this was done by applying a proven customer centricity best practice. And this best practice sits at the heart of the customer centricity benchmark that we are offering here at EFMA. And prior to leading the successful transformation at Union Bank of Nigeria, Carlos was head of retail banking and wealth management, looking after the LATAM region at HSBC. And our second panelist is Vivian Imo Ita. She is the head retail segments and products at Union Bank of Nigeria. So really excited today because we have a truly global panel. So Carlos is joining us from Brazil. Vivian's joining us from Nigeria. I'm joining from Portugal. So yeah, we have a really exciting panel ahead of us today. So let's jump right into it. And again, as I mentioned, Union Bank of Nigeria sits at kind of the heart of this case study today. And the bank helps individuals, families, and businesses grow, and this has been doing so for over a century. So it was established in 1917, and it is one of Nigeria's longest standing and most respected financial institutions. It's a full-scale bank offering services to individuals, SME, commercial, as well as corporate clients. So let's kick things off, and I want to start by setting the scene. So kind of understanding what the status quo was at Union Bank of Nigeria. So Carlos, could you describe the state of customer centricity at the bank when you first arrived?
Thank you, Megan. Hi, Vivian. It's great to be here with you too. I arrived in Union Bank at the end of 2014, 15, and in terms of customer centricity, it didn't exist. The maximum you had was a year customer satisfaction survey. that, was the typical one we know on Tiki box with a small sample, a lot of customer interactions on reactions, on complaints that were driven by the regulator. We're talking about, by then, an analog branch-based, not with really mapped processes and paper-driven. And retail by then, and even the SME business was pretty much in existence to generate deposits for corporate banking to, provide loans, So there was not really any customer centricity or customer culture in the bank by then. And that's why one of the reasons I was asked to help them in that moment. Vivian, do you want to add anything?
At this point, no, Carlos, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think, having with the baseline being a yearly customer satisfaction survey, I think there's, definitely a lot to be done in this space. As we all know, over the past 5-6 years in the industry, there's been significant pressure from neobanks, from fintechs, and given kind of the nature of these organizations, they've been able to kind of launch with a highly customer-centric proposition. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to understand what was further developed and added into the bank's digital transformation and customer centricity journey. So Carlos, could you walk us through this screen here, which is kind of the before picture of the bank and how they fared on the customer centricity benchmark?
Yeah, we used the dashboard, to try to understand how the bank was then, and understanding the customer was very limited. They had a superficial understanding, pretty much based on what the market knew. A lot of executives believing that they reflect perfectly the customer's behaviors, anxieties, and problems, which is not the case. We all know that. Insights and ideas being pretty much copy and paste of what other banks in the region were doing, or some innovative ideas on banks around the world, but not necessarily answering customer issues and problems. And the customer experience was bad. You had a branch-based analog bank with very little connections and the process not being mapped. So if you're lucky to have a team in a branch that will serve you well, you're a good guy, you're in good shape. Otherwise, if you didn't have a large amount of money in the bank, or you knew someone in the team, you're never going to expect a good experience. So that's what the benchmark pretty much translates. Of course, you have much deeper questions being made, but that's a summary of how can we translate it. Vivian, do you want to add anything?
I think what I'll just say is, yes, Carlos, you're right. I think it was about product-based selling. Everybody was product-focused rather than customer-focused. And in the market where everyone was pretty much offering the same thing in one shape or form, we realized that the differentiating factor would be how you sell it from the point of view of the customer, where the customer doesn't feel like we're just shoving things to their face, like they go to a supermarket and everybody's telling you to take everything and not understanding what you need. So we recognize that was a differentiating factor if we had to succeed in this market.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. So again, really just kind of setting the scene. And again, we'll talk in further detail about the benefits of the customer centricity benchmark. But again, I think these visual examples, these kind of benchmark scores really help kind of open your eyes as to where you are as an organization in terms of how customer-centric you are. So I think, here we can see that 2015, the bank had a huge scope for further improvements in customer centricity. And now I want to talk about how UBN went about transforming the bank. So Carlos, can you talk us through kind of what the approach was, what the plan of attack was after undergoing this customer centricity benchmark.
Well, Megan, for a long time in my career, we all need to realize that who pays the bill is the customer. So since my days in HSBC across the world, not only in Europe or Latin America, I always knew, and my team and the people I cross that really understand the business knew that for you to transform a business, you need to understand who pays the bill, which is the customer. So when we landed in Nigeria, there was no central database. So how do you gonna know your customer? I cannot start an interview, 1 million customers or plus that the bank has by then. So we start to do an exercise with the data available that was pretty much linked to some databases of products and channels, trying to understand the behavior of the customers towards the bank. So by doing that, we were able to split the customer base in some clusters that clearly showed us, particularities in behaviors of individuals towards the bank. After that, we built some hypotheses why they were like that, and we confirmed those hypotheses by having several focus groups across the country. Some of the clusters were confirmed, some of them really not stand up because the hypotheses were not confirmed, but we were able to create by then in the beginning like 15 clusters that evolved over the time, and the clusters became living organisms that we start to analyze on a daily basis, and we have teams of people following the behavior of those customers. By understanding them, we are able to start to find solutions, to answer for their issues, problems, dreams, and things like that. We also start to allocate the business resources in a different way, because you realize that some of the investments being done in the past made no sense when you understood your customer base on how they want to interact with you, and also the technology available by them. Another important thing was there was a important cultural thing in that region of Africa. Unfortunately, the retail bank by many banks and people were still seen as a second-class business, that the only existence was for it to provide deposit to corporate banking, which is not the case, because if you want to bring deposits, there are cheaper ways to do that than having a base of branches across the country with ATMs and things like that. And the board of the bank understood that, and that's why they sponsored the transformation and brought a new team together.
Vivian, anything to add?
Yeah, so I think that we had to be deliberate about looking at things from the eye of the customer, and I think that and try to break what I would say would be myths of banking. And I remember the first time we had conversations about even looking at the way our bank branches were structured, where we placed ATMs. At the time, I remember the first time we had a meeting with Carlos, and Carlos was talking about moving our ATMs from the fences into the lobby, where the typical in our position, the typical Nigerian is always in a hurry and not having time to do that. By the time we started experimenting and realizing that it made us actually become closer to our customers, to be able to engage them and sell value propositions at the point where they bring them kind of closer to us. It changed the perception. Things were no longer just, like Carlos said, about satisfying the corporate banking or commercial banking needs. We looked at it not just from a vanilla point of view. We also started looking at things from a geographical point of view, realizing that Nigeria has different ethnic groups and languages. It was important that retail was about, we had to stop looking at ourselves as a bank, because good customer service was not about a bank, it was about an institution, it was about a retail organization offering good services, irrespective of what that service was.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, Nigeria, it's a huge market. It's a highly populous country. I think it's, it is very important to kind of create those clusters and try to think about how well and how deep and niche you can kind of segment your customers. And I think also, yeah, I mean, at this point, 7 years ago, 2015, already starting to think about how you can use the data you have on customers to provide more customer-centric types of experiences and product. That's absolutely critical. That's absolutely critical today. I think this is kind of an ongoing exercise in terms of how banks look to the data they have and how to use that in their kind of path towards providing more customer-centric solutions. So I think, yeah, this I think leads in nicely to the next question about gathering and using customer insights. An absolutely, critical part of any customer centricity strategy, and I think the overall digital transformation strategy at any organization. So, Carlos, can you talk us through how you started to gather insights? Maybe any of the challenges you faced, how you overcame those challenges?
Well, in terms of insights, once we identify the cluster, and as I said, you will continue identifying other clusters in your customer base. It's important for you to label them, understand how they behave, what they expect, and what their problems are. The next step is for you to start to build answers to those. And the answers can be like, you change the way you talk to them, you offer them a different channel of communication or a solution or a new proposition. Long story short, once you start to do that, the strike rates, the conversion rates of the bank that were no more than 1%, 2% in every campaign on effort, it moved up to 25, 30%. So, the return of this understanding, the reshaping of the bank really paid off in terms of the engagement, the loyalty and the cross-sell of customers, And this is not just Union Bank. I have seen that across many countries when we apply that, even in HSBC. I am involved today in some projects where we are trying to do some financial inclusion and understanding each country we are going, in each region of these countries, the insights that we can get to some predefined clusters. You can maximize pretty much the return of each one of the dollar you invest in, Vivian, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, Carlos. So, Carlos has mentioned about how we did focus groups. One of the things that we also do, we have to recognize that we're also an old bank. We recognize that some of the data we had on our customers were stale. And if we didn't try to be creative about how we enrich data, it would be a struggle. So we looked at channels. We were deliberate about running a data enrichment campaign at the time. We actually even gave out something as big as a car at the time to get customers to enrich their data. We introduced the job family that we called sales and service executives. They were pretty much called greeters, who, as customers came into the banking hall, they smiled, tried to attend to customers' needs and used the opportunity to update their data. When people approached us for loans, we used the opportunity to ask them, what is your favorite football club? What kind of hobbies do you have? Because we also recognize that the best way to endear yourself to customers or do personalized sales, it's from the softer issues. So if we positioned our tone of voice around softer issues, it was easier to get customers to buy. We also leverage channels. So we realized that everyday customers call into the contact center for one thing or the other. So we're deliberate about creating KPIs around that, where customers reached out to us, and we used that opportunity to enrich data at every channel that we have.
Nice. I really like that approach, kind of going around the softer issues. I think kind of moving away from, just being a impersonal bank, almost a commodity, towards really trying to kind of, resonate on a human level with your customers. I absolutely love that. So I guess, what did you start to do differently from the insights that you began collecting, Carlos?
Yes, well, based on the insights, we start to reshape the whole bank. Just to give an example, we were the first, I don't know if, because I left Nigeria in the beginning of 2020, okay, it's been now almost 2 years. as it's been 2 years actually. We are the first bank that has built a proactive call center, okay? The call centers were just, reactive to receive calls. We start to contact clusters and customers through the phones. And we did that in a very personal shape, not with bots necessarily, because we have to bring the human touch. We have to bring the trust of the customers back to the bank. So instead of driving all this exercise through branches only, which makes no sense in 21st century, we built a brand new mobile bank solution, which was interactive. It worked quite well. We built this call center that we had like 30 people. We ended up with more than, I think, 400 people. I don't have the number in my mind, but it was a decent call center for the market by then. Not comparable to the ones we have in HSBC in a World Bank, but for a Nigerian local bank, it was significant. The level of sales and efficiency in conversion in the call centers represented, when I left the bank, 10 sales regions. Was amazing. So we change channels, we create new channels, we adapt our technology to the reality of Africa, because in 2015 until 2020, the feature phones had an important share in the phones available to the population. You don't have a lot of smartphones. So we create a brand new solution on banking, servicing, and engaging customers in a feature phone, which was followed by many of our competitors. So by having the insight, we reshape the whole distribution channels. We also eliminate a lot of products, because there were a lot of repetitive products that had a very little base of customers. By engaging the customers, we were able to reshape them. We create new products that were relevant. So with less than half of the products we had before, we were being much more effective, cost effective, and much closer to our customers, because the message, the designs of the products were pretty much led by the problems they present to us, the dreams and issues. We create a loan portfolio, because until then, loans were to a very small number of customers in retail in the market, not only the bank. A loan would take 15 days to get approved. After the whole revision and the mapping of process, it would not take more than 1 day. We increased the base of loans dramatically, and the losses were pretty small. And they were small because we understood our customer base, and we are, delivering loans in a way they understood, and we understood also their capacity of paying. We start to do a very close tracking on customer acquisition, the maintenance of the relationship, and attrition. And more important also was a nationwide training and reward program, where all the senior managers and directors were involved, traveling around the country and explain to the people the new processes, the new products, the new clusters, how to deal with the customers. And that was not only branches, but also to back office people, anyone doing web chats or the call center. So that's how the insights help us, because we have the content to be able to reshape products, solutions, channels, people, motivate people towards that. We also, on the remaining products, services, and channels, we mapped out all the process. So by mapping the process, we have the proper tracking, and we made sure that the services were reliable. We understood by then the pain points and the bottlenecks. Some of them we could deal with, others were mitigators because of the reality of the country. And again, we train our staffs on all the processes, and that ensured us a consistency when we deliver what we are trying to do. Vivian?
Yeah, so Carlos, you said a lot. I think what I would like to add is, so we actually, talking about the insights that we got, we actually launched a project at the time. Carlos, you forgot to mention that, called Project North.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, so we realized that there was a lot of concentration in the urban areas, as it were, but we saw an opportunity in a space where there was a large population of retail customers, and we knew that if we tweaked our products slightly to suit their needs, the impact of that project was amazing. We also realized that the in-branch sales and what you would call reactive sales to those who come into the banking hall Typically before, they were simply service-driven. There was no deliberate notion to know that the footfall in the branches provided an opportunity for you to drive sales, and that job family eventually contributed about 30 to 40% of the sales on a monthly basis. We also realized that we had an opportunity. Yes, we were an old bank, so we had a cluster called, we choose to call senior citizens. So we're deliberate in coming up with a value proposition for that age of customers. I mean, why shy away from your heritage? If our strength was in the elderly, let's come up with propositions. So at the time, for the longest time, we were the only bank that were giving loans to retirees, positioning them for people we call retired but not tired. So we had propositions. We realized that they were lonely. There were people who wanted to come to the banking hall and have attention because their kids had grown up and moved out. So we encouraged them to come to some of our events, and they became a strong base for referrals as well. We created what we would call is a customer file. So it's a CRM, but for us, we created it, which allowed us to provide leads and next best actions to our front line. So because there were things, we wanted to be proactive about it because we didn't want people to engage customers out of air. So we were able to draw the data points that we have, put it together on the platform, and on a monthly basis, we shared ideas to our relationship managers, our direct sales officers, to say these are potential products or solutions that you can sell to customers as you encounter them on a daily basis.
Fantastic. I mean, that's incredibly impressive, all the kind of different initiatives that you were able to, implement and fulfill given the rich amount of insights. And I mean, again, I think it's really impressive that you were able to completely transform not just the different channels, but also, the product line you had, as well as revamping kind of the sales tactics. So yeah, it seems that a lot was certainly done across all, different kind of sub areas of the bank. And I think we kind of briefly touched upon culture a few questions ago, but I want to kind of talk about this further because I think, changing culture, it's critical, but it's not always super easy in an institution. And I think that when it comes to something like customer centricity, once you can kind of once you can instill a culture of thinking about the end customer and thinking always kind of in this customer-centric way, that's when you really start to bring it all together in terms of a truly customer-centric organization. So how did the changes affect the bank's culture, Carlos?
Well, Megan, I remember vividly one of my first meetings with the retail team. We invite some branch-based people and some contact center people. I think I had around 60 people in a large room or more. And I start to ask people like a crazy Brazilian guy, what retail bank is all about. First thing I noticed, they were all shy, very much kind of timid in the meeting. And second, we exist to bring deposit. We exist to bring deposit. That's all they answered, okay? We exist to serve corporate and commercial to lend money. I said, what the hell is this, So I start to challenge them. And then I start to realize that was not only that institution, that was something across the market. And that's what I think the board noticed, they had a huge expensive infrastructure to bring deposits. So, and they saw and they see what retail bank and SME bank can do around the world in terms of the diversity of products, the return, the margins in loans and things like that when it's well done, So I start to evangelize people on the potentials or the importance of the role of retail bank, and show the return it could bring to the business and to the customers, in terms of profit from both sides. And we start to develop pride. We change the way people dress. We start to dress our staff much more like the people in the streets. Also, there was this culture. I'm a banker. I use a tie and a suit, and you are a customer and use a t-shirt. Okay. So we start to create this rapport. We change the way people dress, the way the attitude in the branch, the way they interact, you know, and showing them that interacting with customers, knowing them was an opportunity to increase the value of the business and as well as the value of the company to the customer. So nationwide, we had this training program, as I mentioned, where we talk about, you know, the importance of attitude, the way to sell, the way to interact. We talk about the new solutions. We talk about the various clusters, how to identify them, what kind of phrases, tone of voice to use, the new processes, you know, we start to value the right behavior with money and promotions. Actually, we launched a very, you know, strict meritocratic approach on promoting people, which was based on the way they treat customers. So customer complaints, customers saying good stuff about stuff. We have Mr. Shoppers checking that as the same time the value they brought in terms of sales. So it was just not sales, not pushing products or service. The customer perception, the customer feeling, the trust was very important and was balanced on the way we, you know, value people and promote them. So, and this program was running every quarter. And I personally travel around the country. You know, I try to go to as many large clusters of employees and visiting branches and, you know, in stages recognizing people, and we use the same kind of events to train them. So gradually we create a retail bank that was quite proud of being retail, and there was nothing that you would place in front of them as a challenge that they won't face and deliver. It was an amazing experience. Vivian, how you felt on that crazy journey?
I would say, Carlos, it was a movement. I think it was a movement. It had to be one. Again, particularly because it was something different that the bank wasn't used to. We also introduced commissions. Carlos was one of the people that said that salespeople needed instant gratification. So before then, the culture was a culture of waiting for the entire financial year to be concluded, and then you determine if there was profit, if there was bonus. So he did introduce commission payment for the sales team, where at the end of every month, if you met your numbers, you got instant extra. There was the career path. Before then, there were if you needed retail, if you need the vacancies within the core job functions, we got them outside the bank, but Carlos pushed for a meritocracy formula that allowed support staff become full employees by following a process, and it became quite popular because people saw themselves as part of the movement, I would say. And then we had a lot of conventions happening. It wasn't quite common in the industry at the time. I still don't think it is, but that's also helped to give a sense of fulfillment and commitment to the cause.
Nice. I mean, I think a very kind of, broad and in-depth amount of examples and kind of ways in which you can gradually create a movement. I like that term, kind of the movement rather than the transformation of the culture around customer centricity. So all of that I think is super inspiring. And how did the bank change the way that it approaches customer acquisition, growth, and customer retention as a result of kind of this journey, this movement?
Again, the moment you understand which are the customers that are valuing the propositions, the position you placed yourself in the market, it became much easier to go after prospects with similar characteristics. So we were able to target people that were much more aligned to the solutions and the way we are treating people. We create a acquisition team that were trained on how to approach people. We create also other campaigns on referral. So, but we are always targeting people that were aligned with the solutions, the propositions, and the way we are treating people. Because there was no point of you going after people that were in another vibe, you know? So, and it was crazy because when I joined the bank, what was driving acquisition campaign was the fashion. So now it's the fashion of the youth. Yeah, but youth is not a cluster, it's not a segment. Not every young people behave the same way. Which kind of youngsters, where they are, you know, what are kind of the youngsters that are looking to do business with us. So by going to a university and spending fortune going after everybody, you're not going to succeed. So we start to do target campaigns. We start to train our acquisition team that didn't exist before to go after those people across the nation, and a lot of referral campaigns also with satisfied customers. In terms of growing the relationship with us, because we knew the hierarchy of the behavior of the customer toward us for each cluster, we have the designs of the curves, we could anticipate movements in terms of either a service understanding or a product acquisition or the discussion of a solution or a problem customers will have or facing. We also had triggers in our database showing that customers were going through some either great times in their lives or some difficult ones. And that was a prompt to engage with them. We also track in a monthly basis the attrition by cluster. Anytime we saw an increase on attrition, we will investigate that. And we will launch multi-channel retention campaigns, and in some cases, person-to-person, you know, interactions to try to understand deeply what was going on. So, and all that by training our staff, both from the back end, the call center, or the people providing support on the digital channels and the branches on identifying and dealing with different moments of the customers. As Vivian said, we had this customer file system where we indicate which cluster was, and we try to give hints on subjects and terms that they should use. Do not take lightly the challenge to work in a country that has 300 dialects, 4 major ones, okay? Very much splitted, merged by the village, the religion, the dialects, then be feeling like a Nigerian. I walk in some branches and I visit some customers that I try to speak English with them, and they look to me and I said, well, he doesn't listen, he has a hearing, no, sir, he doesn't have any ear problem or listening problem. He speaks only Hausa, or he speaks only, you know, Yoruba, or, you know, Igbo, or any other dialect. And I was like, okay, so help me here because I don't speak that. So that was important also. We had a lot of messages across the country with the right, you know, language to be used, the terms. We even have speaking ATMs. On illiteracy, we start to do things like in colors and numbers because people had much more, they felt much easier to be guided by numbers and colors. So it was a challenge for us to engage with customers and make sure that they felt part of the movement, as Vivian mentioned. I don't know if Vivian want to add anything on that.
Carlos, you said a lot. I think the only thing I would want to say is, so we were also deliberate on how we handled proactive and reactive sales, as you would say. We knew that we were deliberate about the RMs and their average portfolio size, because we realized that if we wanted our RMs to speak to their customers at least with a frequency, whether once a month or twice a month, depending on what the segment was, we needed to keep them to a specific size. We also kind of monitor this from the center to decide when a customer was profitable enough to move to the higher segments that required them to be managed more closely. We realized that for the personal banking customers who form the largest of the Nigerian population, we had to be to structure ourselves in such a way that not only did we engage them face to face when they walked into the banking hall, but there was proactive sales from telesales to engage them based on what we have identified as the next action. I'll be the only thing I'll add, Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian.
Super. And What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome when we think about kind of the culture aspect, how you kind of changed the growth and retention strategy, even perhaps the way in which you were able to collect the insights? Yeah, what were the biggest challenges and how did you ensure that you overcame these?
Well, Megan, we have some basic challenge in the beginning. You know, in Nigeria, as in some areas in Africa, you have the lack of regular power supply. Okay, you have only kind of power supply for 30% of your needs. If you need more than that, you have to have a generator. Okay, and generators across a country like Nigeria, with all the issues in terms of dust, in terms of security and everything, requires a perfect maintenance logistic. So to have perfect was almost impossible. So what you have to do is you need to understand usage, traffic, where you're going to have 100% coverage, where you're going to have 80% coverage, so far and so on. We also have very slow internet connections. So how you run an ATM in a place like this, so you don't have power, you don't have internet connection. So you have to be very creative and you have to establish new linkage. You have to think about how you program stuff, using memory and traffic, So, it was a challenge. So also we have bad roads, a lot of roads in dirt, very few number of flights, not a frequency you're going to find in other countries. So you have to deal with that, and you have to understand how to deploy your resources on that. And not less important, as you properly mentioned, was the culture stuff. So we have to deal with that. How we overcome that? We have a staff that once they understood the opportunity and what we're trying to do, they're willing to learn and do things different. And they lived all their life in Nigeria. They have been dealing with all these infrastructure issues, and they help us a lot with creativity ideas. I'll give an example. Bills, money bills, a lot of them were soggy. They're humid. If you put them in an ATM, they won't dispense. If you put in a deposit ATM, they're not going to be counted. So they create literally an oven in the branch that they put all the bills to dry so they could feed the ATMs, okay?
Wow.
We also have the issues that in some areas of the country, you have a lot of money circulating, and in others, not so much. But for you to move to one city to the other, you're going to have to face the terrorists. So we have to develop ways to move that money in a smart way that's not going to cost the tubes. These ovens, drying bills, help a lot. The way we start to, keep the parts and accessory for ATMs to be alive, the ways you start to deploy ATMs within the lobbies to have cross-sell. But in some areas, because you have we were the only bank, you have to have like not only inside the branch ATMs, but outside like 20 ATMs, because people stopped going to the branch. They saw that they could deal on banking, use the ATMs and their solutions in their phones, okay? And gradually, when you start to have QR codes and agents, you even start to not need so many ATMs. So all this being creative, the people always have in mind these issues that if you are in a country like Portugal or in Brazil, you not even think about it. But there you have to, and the people are there proactively helping us. Another thing that was amazing for us to be able to overcome the issues was the fact that we mapped the processes. By mapping the process, we knew in anticipation where we have the bottlenecks, the pain points. So when anything external to us happened, we knew how it's going to affect us and what we have to do to minimize the impact towards our customers, and very important, we start to deploy resources according to our customers' usage, the return of that usage, and where it will be more important in terms of maintaining the trust, loyalty, and return for the customers, for ourselves. And I will not be fair if we have not surfed a lot in a very successful revolution in Nigeria, which was the mobile phones revolution. The penetration of mobile phones in Nigeria is amazing, and I think is interesting history of success in the country in the last 20 years. Vivian, have I forgot anything?
No, Carlos, I think you're right. I think one of the challenges is getting everybody on the same page, particularly when people are used to doing things in the same way, and you're trying to move them to see the vision and the picture that you have. Obviously, expectations for quick wins, but in retail, there are no quick wins. As it were, Carlos would say, retail is about, I'm trying to remember what he used to say, consistency, reward. Carlos, I'm trying to remember.
Resilience, consistency, and proper reward.
Yes, he used to say that. Another difficulty was trying to get customers in. Customers didn't understand what we're trying to do when we talked about focus groups. So when we used to come, and they would think that was an avenue to rant and rave about the issues that they had. When you were trying to get into, let them know that you want to understand their needs, their concerns. They thought we came from planet Pluto at the time, but it was an interesting journey. So yeah, Carlos, you have it covered. Thank you.
Great. And yeah, I mean, I think we've done a really good job of kind of setting the scene, looking at what was implemented to become more customer centric, what some of the challenges were, lots of tips and advice. So what is the difference in the bank's performance by being customer centric? And I'm going to kind of revert to this slide. So I think, you know, in the beginning, we looked at the before, we talked about all the things that were done. And now, you know, Carlos, Vivian, it'd be great if you can talk us about kind of this after. I think here we can see a substantial improvement in customer centricity.
Well, in any metric you measure the bank, any measure, it grew minimum 3-digit numbers percentage growth. And I'm not talking about 100%. We are starting with 300%. If you talk about sales, if you talk about retention, if you talk about customer satisfaction, if you talk about channel usage, pride of the employees, okay? Before we start this movement, 95% of all transactions were done by paper over the counter at branches. By 2020, 95% of the transactions are not done in branches itself. We had thousands of customers in mobile then, which was a clunky solution, kind of copy and paste in the market with only 300 active users on the mobile banking. We end up having 6 million active users in 2020. I'm sure Vivian did a good job in this 2 years, and this number is even bigger. We had no agent banking, which was a very important complement for the branches. So that allowed us to have branches in key positions, reducing the number of branches, increasing the number of ATMs, increasing the capacity and the speed of our mobile banking and wallet accounts, and we create those agents. So from zero, I think Union Bank today has 20,000 plus agents across Nigeria, doing everything you can imagine in terms of opening accounts, receiving deposits, withdrawals, transfer payments. So that's very convenient to the customers. We tripled the number of transactions processed by the bank, not only because we have new customers, but also the base was much more loyal and trust in the customer and the bank systems and the processes. We tripled the number of customers. But the good thing is that when we start the movement or the revolution or the transformation, only 10% of the accounts were funded. By then, we have 95% of them funded. So we tripled the number of customers, you triple the number of transactions, and we increased the engagement of the customers to 95%. A summary of that is that we doubled the net revenue of the business, you know. So, and in terms of the benchmark, what we can see is that the 3 indicators improved a lot. The understanding of the customer, I think, was the best improvement because there was none, and we start to use a lot of techniques that we normally use in a smarter way, and I use that in also my career in HSBC, and the understanding improved a lot. The insight improved a lot also. Insight demands a lot of discipline. You have to be engaging with your customers' clusters in a continuous basis. If you don't do that, you're gonna miss insights. And you have to get the insights and test them. and then transform your company day in, day out, because you have different clusters and different problems, issues affecting different clusters of customers. The customer experience increased a lot. I think it have not increased more because we have a lot of infrastructure issues that we were dealing with, security issues, with power issues, linkage issues, but there was a significant increase on that. One message I have on this is that no customer-centric effort movement will work or succeed if you don't have the leadership, understanding, and commitment, because it's a different way of seeing a bank or even seeing a company in general. And once you start, you cannot go back, because people that were used or are used to do this, if they go back to a product-centric or a siloed account company, a siloed company, will feel very frustrated, and they're probably going to be leaving the company because they will say, makes no sense. We are wasting resources because we are doing things 5 times. Because if you have the company siloed in products or in channels, you're going to do the same thing in each one of them. When you do by the customer, you do once, because it's about the cluster, it's about the segment, it's about the customer itself. So all the areas of the company start to try to build solutions and improve, who makes the money, who pays your salary, which is the customer. So I think that's how I'll summary that and talk about results. I don't know if Vivian want to add anything.
Yeah, so Carlos, again, I think you've, the only thing I would add is eventually, yes. So when we started the struggle, it was one of the things that was a struggle was how to come away from costs to be able to get into a profitable retail business, which we have. From a bank that was considered as an old bank, we have institutions that monitor what the pulse of customers across banks. The recent result that came out, we came 6th out of the banks that we have in Nigeria. So I think, and when somebody walks away, sometimes we try to validate the reasons why some decisions were made. And I would say that yes, the direction that Carlos has put us through has been revalidated over and over again, because we have had an increase in the number of customers who pay the bill, transacting customers. Luckily, one of the things that put us in introducing ESAs, for instance, and we now have agents to over 20,000 was timely, particularly in time of COVID, where we found out that people were no longer, the branch banks were not available, and people had to go to agent locations. And if you even see the numbers in Africa, you will see that card usage has moved from bank ATMs to agent locations. So that helped us prepare for that. Mobile is still growing, mobile and USSD is growing. Yes, Carlos, that would be what I would say. Thank you.
Definitely a significant and dramatic improvement. And before we jump into the questions, we actually have quite a few. I just kind of wanted to wrap up by giving a bit more information about the EFMA Customer-centricity Benchmark. So this is a product that we've just launched in collaboration with Smarter Ways, available to our members. It's a confidential and exclusive report. And again, as you can see, it will really help you as an institution bring your customer centricity and also your overall, digital transformation strategy to the next level. I think what's fantastic about this benchmark is that it's a very rapid assessment. So you as an organization, you fill out a very simple, easy to use questionnaire, questions about, your future strategy, what tactics and different processes you have at the moment when it comes to customer centricity. And you're presented with a very comprehensive report, providing you kind of that summary dashboard, but also a lot of rich insights on the KPI basis, as well as a kind of summary workshop that will help you kind of look and kind of understand the right tactics to move yourself further along that dial on the benchmark. So we encourage any members, anyone in the audience that's interested in hearing more, to please get in touch. You can get in touch with me, and I will be happy to talk you through, give a demo. So yeah, thank you so much. And now on to the questions. So maybe let's start with the first questions from the audience. So how did the bank products and services change during the transformation? Did you reduce the banking terminology? I'll open that up to either Carlos or Vivian to answer.
Well, we did, as I said, a full revision of the portfolio. As in any bank that's not customer-centric and is not looking for cost efficiency based on customer, there were a lot of products that used to sell the same thing with a different name, which makes no sense whatsoever. We have the lack of many products that customers were signaling to us they need because of their issues, problems, and dreams. We made the names or the terminology of the products pretty much trying to translate what the product was delivering, not a banking name necessarily. Actually, you use a lot of local dialect names because, as I mentioned, we build a lot of products to the clusters. And in a country where you have a lot of different village dialects, you can work on that. And that brings it even closer to the customers. So yes, we reduced dramatically the number of products, but at the same time, we increased a lot the offering, because in the past, you have the same with 15 different names. So then you have three different answers to a customer need and requirement, okay? And helping them to fulfill dreams or make their life easier. Same thing on loans. They were not used the way we're doing the analysis and providing loans in such a fast way. And we engage on them, teaching them how to do that. But the terminology was pretty much non-banking driven. We start to use local names and things that will better translate what the product was trying to do.
Okay. Vivian, anything to add before we jump to the next question quickly?
Yeah, so no, I think Carlos is right. We reduced products, and I think we're focused on it wasn't about products, it was about how we sell. So for instance, a savings product is a savings product, but people save for different reasons. So we positioned those solutions or campaigns in a way that it was to play on customers' emotions. That was the aim.
Okay, thank you. And two more, because we're just about out of time. How do you measure satisfaction in the branch?
We did that in basically two ways. We have Mr. Shoppers that were going to branches trying to see if what we expect to happen in terms of process were happening, and also to understand the vibe and how people in the branch were feeling. We also have constant satisfaction surveys that were pretty much done on a daily basis with a machine that we place in the branch with faces that will be, happy, satisfied or not. We also, during the focus groups, we have samples of the clusters. And we also have a very proactive call center engaged with customers, and every time asking how they felt about services, not only with the call center, but across the bank. And weekly, we revise the numbers in terms of satisfaction, issues, complaints, weekly, by region, by sales region. I myself personally used to sit down with my customer guys, and we go region by region, looking in the indexes. If we see any variation, any issue, and anything that was not proper answer, we intervene right away.
Yeah, so the only other thing I would add is we also had random surveys done. So if we had customers who came into our banking hall or used our channel, an automated trigger survey was sent to them based on the service they came into the banking hall for, or use the ATM for, to ask them what they thought about the service and if there was any other thing that they would like to change. And we found out that customers used the opportunity to give feedback on their bank and its services.
Super. Okay, so I'm going to end on one last question. What's the secret to convert more digital customers?
First of all, you need to understand if your customers understand what digital is all about. One criticism that I have to a lot of digital banks today is that they start with the assumption that every individual of the world has a smartphone and is very knowledgeable of the damn smartphone. That's not true. The reality of life is that when you go mainly to countries like African countries, Latin America, and in Asia, a lot of people first don't have a smartphone. Second, they don't know how to use it. And even if they have a feature phone, they probably are not doing banking the feature phone. So you have to understand that's not just about digital. You still have a lot of face-to-face work to do, a lot of teaching, educating people in order for you to become a fully digital bank, unless you want a niche of people that have smartphones and are digitally literate. So if you do not help people to go where you wanted them to go, to help them, take them by hand, you're not going to succeed. And that's why in Nigeria, despite of the penetration of feature phones, we have our sales teams out there talking to people, teaching them, because once they learn, they will use it and they will teach other people to use. They feel proud. Oh, you don't know, I'll teach you. And that's how it goes. It goes like, rapid fire on that, but you have to invest on that. So another thing that scares me is that some of these digital banks, that they believe that the processes and the answer of the customer should be done just one way. So you have these irritating bots or these web chats that they present you 5 solutions. If your problem is not solving the 5 solutions, you are dead. You have no one to go. So we need to understand that the population in the world is not digitally savvy by 100%, probably much less than 20, 30%. How are we going to deal with the other 70%? So we need to be humble, help them to get where we wanted them to be. That's my view. I don't know if Vivian has another view or something to add.
Yes, I'll just add quickly that you also have to recognize that sometimes when people are not savvy, they are too ashamed or shy to ask, at least in this side of the country. So we took advantage of the in-branch greeters. We took advantage of our security men at the security post. So when you find that people, we actually found at some point that the security men were actually good salespeople by just providing direction to people. So I think if you use that, come down to their level, speak their language, people will be comfortable. I think if you also upfront the risk that they stand to face by using this channel, but also educate them. And then I think for at some point on a weekly basis, we used to do mobile Friday. So when people came into branches, we wore T-shirts and we just had staff show people that walked into the banking hall how to come on those platforms. So that would be what I'd add. Thank you.
Super. So Carlos and Vivian, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences and how to really create a successful movement when it comes to centricity and in such a market where there's a lot of complexities. It's a bit challenging, a hugely populous country. And I think it's amazing to see that one of the oldest institutions in Nigeria in such a short amount of time was able to really move the dial, and then in terms of customer centricity. So thank you both again. Thank you for all of our participants. And if you have any questions about the new customer centricity benchmark that we're offering, then please drop me an email at megan@efma.com. Carlos and Vivian, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye, Vivian. See you.
Bye.